Hey there, Parker Reed here, and welcome to PR Media, your home for everything movies and music through my eyes. And today I have a very special guest with me, Mr. Kevin Trushenski. Kevin, say hi to the people here.
Hi, people here.
So today we're going to be talking about 5 records that we think are underrated by some bigger bands. A lot of these bands have big albums, or maybe these are just the lesser known artists for albums you need to check out, but we listen to a lot of music and a lot of it doesn't get appreciated enough as it should. So Kevin, what's one album you think is underrated?
Well, the album that I always think of when I think of underrated albums is Animals by Pink Floyd.
That's a good pick. It's sandwiched right in between 2 bigger records.
And I think that it's just the longer nature of the songs on that album that didn't allow it to have as much airplay, and maybe people just didn't understand what was happening with that as much, but I just love that album. It's my favorite Pink Floyd album, and I wish it got the same attention that like Dark Side of the Moon or The Wall get.
Exactly, and you had Wish You Were Here previous, which had more a little bit more commercial songs, especially Wish You Were Here is probably one of the biggest radio songs Pink Floyd had. Then you're going to put out an album that only has 5 songs, of which some are 15, 20-minute instrumental jams with weird Roger Waters, minute and a half, Pigs on a Wing. And then you come out with The Wall, which is a landmark record as far as rock music goes.
Absolutely.
It doesn't get attention. That's my favorite Pink Floyd record too. So it needs more attention. But an album I think needs more attention is from another band who had the unfortunate occurrence of trying to follow up 2 bigger records, AC/DC's Flick of the Switch.
Okay.
Flick of the Switch is raw, down and dirty. It's almost the equivalent of like what an early Bon Scott record would have been in the Brian Johnson era. And had to follow up For Those About to Rock and Back in Black.
Yeah. It was doomed.
And it died on the charts. It did not do nearly as well. There's a reason I have a tattoo of it, because it's just it doesn't get the attention it deserves, and there's some great tracks. Guns for Hire, Flick of the Switch, Bedlam in Belgium, Landslide. The whole thing is just energy from start to finish. It does not let up, and I think it's underrated.
On a similar note to that, another album I think is just sorely underrated is AC/DC's Blow Up Your Video.
Thank you. Someone agrees.
I love that album so much. I think every song on that album is just absolutely fire. I just love Heat Seeker, and That's the Way I Want to Rock and Roll. You got Mean Streak, and just so many good songs on there.
Kissin' Dynamite's a great song on that record. And it has some of the most inventive guitar playing from Angus Young.
Yeah, I think so.
He sounds like he's trying to play in the 80s style on that record.
Yep, I think so.
There's even some tapping, and it's weird to hear Angus playing like that.
Yeah.
Quickly gave it up on the next album, but on that album, he went for it. I don't love the production on it all the time.
Right.
I think Brian's vocals are good, but they sound like he's singing in the shower, and there's way too much echo. He doesn't feel as present on the previous albums. Fly on the Wall had that problem too.
Oh yeah, he's lost on that album.
But you know where he sounds amazing? Flick of the Switch.
Yeah.
We're listening to Flick of the Switch. Blow Up Your Video is solid. But in that same rock genre, another album I think is underrated is Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators, Apocalyptic Love. Have you heard this record?
I have, yeah.
Slash and Miles together is a recipe made in heaven.
Absolutely.
Because Miles is one of my favorite vocalists, and Slash writes great music. Songs like You're a Lie and Standing in the Sun and Anastasia off that album, they've been live staples for Slash and Miles for about a decade now. And that whole album is really solid. It didn't get the commercial attention that his first solo album did, and subsequently he's received less attention since Guns N' Roses came back, and that's where everyone else pays attention to him. But that's a solid rock album, and a really dynamic rock album I don't think gets nearly enough attention.
Yeah, I love anything that Slash and Miles do together. I think Miles is just such a good vocalist, and they just have a really good dynamic together that is fantastic and doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves.
Great live band too.
Oh, I believe it.
Have you ever seen them live?
No.
Oh, come on, man. They don't tour nearly as much now since Guns N' Roses is a thing. And they're that giant conglomerate machine. But I've been lucky enough to see Miles and Slash together multiple times.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I've seen Miles and Slash separately multiple times.
As have I.
Exactly. So together, it sounds really great. But what's another album that you think's underrated, Kev?
Another one that I think is very underrated would be Clockwork Angels by Rush. Have you heard that album?
I do not like Rush. So I get why they're so great.
Yeah.
They're just not for me. But why do you like this album?
I love the album because it really tells a good story, and Neil Peart actually wrote a book following the story of Clockwork Angels, and it's just a fantastic story. The songs on it, they really stick in my head when I listen to it. It was very fun. I got to see that tour, fortunately. It just blew me away to hear them play those songs. They even had a full orchestra with them to play those songs, and I just love the story that album tells and how you can follow it all the way through. And it ended up being their last album, and unfortunately...
Three of the best musicians in rock history.
Absolutely.
Their technical proficiency is second to none, and I appreciate that about their music. I just don't love Geddy Lee's voice.
That's fair.
And that's just a personal taste thing. They have millions and legions of fans. They do not miss me and my big nose get into their business. I've heard it has gotten a lot of great reviews. It's kind of a return to form for them.
It is, yeah. And I think just being that it was a newer release, it just didn't quite get the attention that it would have as back in the day of like moving pictures. And if more people listened to it, it would really catch on. But
another record that I have in mind that is not as technically proficient as Rush, but is one of the greatest catchy records of the past decade, I think, is Kings of Leon's Mechanical Bull. Kings of Leon gets a lot of flack ever since Only by the Night came out because initially they were more of a country alternative band, then they turned into an arena rock band. But Mechanical Bull has some country influences while still presenting a facade of an arena rock band that just really brings you in, gives the album a sense of intimacy that you wouldn't see present in a lot of arena rock music. And I think it's got some of their best songs. Beautiful War is a great song. Tonight, Wait for Me, some of the best ballads on that album. I think it's really solid, and it gets lost in their discography because a lot of people only pay attention to Only by the Night, and that's a damn sin because they have so many good albums, especially their most recent album, Walls, is fantastic as well. I just don't think it gets enough attention.
To be honest, I haven't heard that album, but I've liked what I've heard of Kings of Leon, but I just haven't really had the time to dive into their stuff yet.
What's your next album you think's underrated, Kevin?
Yeah, another one that I think is very underrated would be The Mission by Stixx, and that's their most recent album, and I think it's honestly one of their best albums. I would put it right up there with their 80s staples, such as like the Paradise Theater album, and then go even earlier, you get Pieces of Eight and The Grand Illusion, but I would put The Mission right up there because I just think that it tells a fantastic story, and the songs on there are just so fun to listen to for me.
Do they have any songs on there that compare to the masterpiece of Mr. Roboto?
Everything on there is better than Mr. Roboto.
So you love Stixx. And I don't understand why. Explain the grand illusion of Stixx.
I like how they have so many different vocalists that are all very talented. Every musician they have in that band is just fantastic. And their harmonies, they just really are tight together. And the songs that they write, they have like a good message to them, and they're just a very fun, uplifting band. But I still find their music to be rather musically interesting. It's not just some standard stuff. They have some that good prog rock sound that I've always enjoyed. And
an album I'm not sure you've heard, but I hope you might get into it because you're getting into the father band of this side project, is Tremonti's debut solo album, All I Was. Tremonti is the lead guitar player for Alter Bridge and before that Creed, and his first solo project he put out about 7 or 8 years ago, All I Was, is super heavy. It's his first album where he sings lead on every song, and it's got some of the best lead work and some of the most diverse songwriting I've ever heard from him. And tragically, it did not get a lot of attention. I remember seeing him at a venue in Minneapolis called the Brick House, and they had the main floor full, but the top part was all empty.
Oh man.
And he commented on it. He goes, maybe next time we'll fill up the top part.
Oh man.
And that's just horrible when an artist comments on the environment of a festival or a show. I remember seeing Iron Maiden back in 2012, and they commented that all the people in VIP were a bunch of people who had sticks up their asses, and all the real fans were back there. And they also asked where the cows were, because we were in Cadott, Wisconsin, so all the cows had gone home.
Yep.
But All I Was, have you ever delved into this record, Kevin?
I haven't yet.
I hope you do, because I think you'll really like it, because you started to go towards Alter Bridge a little bit with their last record.
Yep.
And if you liked some of the heavier moments on that, you'll definitely like All I Was.
Oh,
and
yeah.
his entire discography, he's a great songwriter, too. Miles usually gets the credit for songwriting in Alter Bridge, but with Tremonti, he really flexes his muscles and shows all this stuff that he wasn't able to do on a more traditional mainstream Alter Bridge record. Yeah, so what is the next record for you, Kevin? A
record that I always am happy to listen to, but a lot of people aren't, and I know you especially hate.
Please don't say Ariel Speedwagon.
Ariel Speedwagon's album, Good Trouble.
Why?
That album, it was so overshadowed by its predecessor, High Infidelity. It was also overshadowed by the following album, Wheels Are Turning. It's just, every song on there is just very uplifting and fun. You got like Keep the Fire Burning and Sweet Time. It's just a solid album that they ignore live. A lot of fans wish they didn't, but more people need to listen to that album because it's honestly one of their best ones, and it's always overshadowed by High Infidelity.
Are there any songs about the tough guys or the rough guys?
There are not, no.
Can't get on board.
It's just an album about keeping the fire burning, and that's what matters.
Stixx and Ariel Speedwagon are two bands I don't understand. I want to. I saw Ariel Speedwagon live once.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I get why they were popular in the 80s.
Sure.
But you and your friend Tyler have this weird affinity. And even at your wedding,
yeah.
Ariel Speedwagon wasn't mentioned once. It was mentioned multiple times. And you need to give me some credit because I did dance to Ariel Speedwagon.
You did.
Multiple times.
Yes, you did. And that was impressive.
I appreciate your love for Ariel. But I don't share it, and that's fine.
That's okay, yeah.
I wish to understand.
It's not for everyone. I get it.
To get off of Ariel Speedwagon as soon as possible, with the last album that I have here is Dokken, with their album they released about a decade ago called Lightning Strikes Again. This album is back to basics for Dokken, and it features some of the best songwriting, not vocals, because Don Dokken hasn't been able to sing for the past 20 years, but songwriting and musicianship on that album are really solid. It feels like a band just figured out what made them great back in the 80s and did it again. But being the fact that nobody has paid attention to hair metal bands since 1991,
that's unfortunate.
No one's heard it. When they pressed it on vinyl, they only did about 150 copies. So I had to pay up the wazoo to find this on vinyl on Discogs. I think I paid like $200 for it.
Oh man.
But it's great. It's fantastic. Are you familiar with Dokken?
Oh yeah.
Like especially their 80s stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Did they put anything else out past 1991 in the eyes of the mainstream?
No.
No, they didn't.
Nope.
In my eyes, they did. I remember I saw them in some crappy bar a couple years ago, and Don
Yeah.
Dokken sounded horrible, but the band sounded great.
Oh.
But this album is solid. It's another one I hope you check out because it's just great 80s hair metal music, and I love 80s hair metal bands.
Oh, me too. Yeah. I love Dokken. I think they have some fantastic musicians in there that have definitely, they've moved on to other projects that I enjoy quite a bit. Jeff Pilson being in Foreigner. You got Wild McBrown, who's with Ted Nugent, and all their musicians are great.
And at that show, Wild McBrown was getting super drunk.
He always does.
He had pictures back there the whole time. Dokken is a weird camp now. They didn't even have their merch guy show up until like a half an hour before they played, and they were 2 hours late.
Oh man, that's bad.
Dokken was weird, and they only had one t-shirt design, so they're just...
Like Rat.
Yeah, like Rat. Rat is all... I should put Rat album on this list. That would have been fantastic. Just put all these weird, obscure 80s bands. I love me some Rat and Dokken, and I love making videos like this. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me in this video.
Thank you very much.
Really enjoyed having you here, and I really enjoyed everyone for watching, so thank you for watching for this video. If you like what you saw here, you can check us out on Facebook or Instagram, and like, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. My name is Parker Reed. You've been watching PR Media. Keep supporting physical media, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. All right. Oh, you son of a bitch.